This video is sponsored by Blueland. Hello, furniture friends. Katie here from Salvaged by K. Scott. I picked up this three-piece coffee table set off of Facebook Marketplace on the cheap, and these kind of rounded off corners and 80s lines are right back on trend. So even though these are particle board and the tops are starting to bubble up, I still think I can save them and make them modern again with a little bit of paint. Since one of my biggest missions here with Salvaged by K. Scott is to keep these kinds of less desirable pieces from ending up in the landfill for as long as possible, in 2022, I really want to start making some more sustainable choices, both outside in the garage on the business side of things and here inside our home. That's why I'm so excited to share Blueland with you. Their cleaners are effective, affordable, and sourced from clean ingredients. Unlike the traditional liquid cleaners that we're constantly buying in single-use plastics, Blueland gives you everything you need to clean your house or your hands with a forever bottle and this nickel-sized tablet. I usually pay $5 to $6 for a bottle of cleaner, but with Blueland, it's just $2 for one of these tablets. $2 is how much I pay for a plain black coffee. All you do is fill your forever bottle with warm water, drop in one of the tablets, wait just a few minutes for it to fully dissolve, and put on your nozzle. Instead of buying the individual cleaning products or hand soap from Blueland, if you get a kit, you're already saving 20%. Plus, they've given me a code for you to save an extra 20%. All you have to do is click the link in the description box to get 20% off your first kit. These tables have a really beautiful oak veneer, but that veneer is over particle board. And when particle board gets wet, it swells and bubbles. Before I do anything else to these, I want to clean them to remove any dirt, dust, and old furniture polish residue. After I cleaned them, I flipped them all over and tightened the legs with a little Allen wrench. Then I grabbed my random orbital sander with some 100 grit sandpaper to start smoothing things out. I didn't want to completely tear through the veneer and expose any more particle board than I had to, so I went really slow with my sander and just used my hand to follow along the side and feel for any texture as I was going. I switched up to some 180 grit sandpaper to scuff up the rest of the tables, and then just folded a chunk of that in half to get into these little grooves. Once I had cleaned up all of the sanding dust, I reached for some latex caulking to fill in these gaps around the tops. Large seams and cracks like this aren't really noticeable on darker all-wood finishes, but they do tend to stick out really badly on a painted finish, so I like to fill them in with caulking to give them a nice clean joint. This caulking is also a little bit flexible, so it will be able to move with the furniture instead of cracking like a traditional wood filler would. My next step is primer, and I'm not priming this to give my paint any better adhesion than it already has. I'm using primer in this case to seal up the porous particle board that I've exposed and protect it from any more moisture getting in, but I also want to seal in any wood tannins that might be wanting to leach up through my new painted finish. I'm using Kills Restoration today. This has the protection of my favorite shellac-based primer, but it's in a water-based formula, so I don't have to use any extra chemicals to clean it up, and it's safe to spray in my electric turbine sprayer. And lo and behold, when my first coat of primer was dry, there was a ton of ugly yellow bleed through. This is why I prime most of my pieces right off the bat without ever questioning it. I don't like to get surprises like this after I've painted, and sometimes that's what happens. Sometimes you don't see it right away until after you've painted or even after you've sealed your piece. I sprayed on 2 coats of my primer and then I let it dry really thoroughly overnight so that it had time to do its thing. This oak has a really deep grain pattern, which I love on the legs, but because of the patterned veneer that was on the tops, it just looks not good. So I want to fill it in. I grabbed some of this Drydex wall spackle and pushed a very light skim coat down into that grain. This isn't the right choice for a regular wood patch, but this stuff does get into these really tiny cracks so well, and it sands down incredibly smooth. So I find that it's just the magic potion for filling in wood grain like this. Once this had dried, I used some 400 grit sandpaper to sand away all of the excess. And there's still a little bit of grain texture there, which is fine, but it's just not nearly as messy as it looked before. My inspiration for these tables is light, bright, and airy with a simple classic white. So I'm going to paint them in Melange Artisan mineral paint in Paperie white. I flipped the tables upside down again, poured a pint of paint into my sprayer, and started at it again. I sprayed 2 coats on the bottoms, then flipped them right way up and sprayed another 3 really light coats on the tops, letting each coat dry for probably about an hour in between. I let my final coat of paint dry overnight, and I was ready for some poly protection in the morning. I gave my Varathane a really thorough stir to make sure that I had all of the components really well incorporated, and then I loaded up my sprayer one last time. I always like to turn down all of the settings to the very minimum when I'm spraying poly, because it's so thin and it really likes to drip on vertical surfaces. So I sprayed 3 coats of this again, waiting 2 hours in between, which is the recommended dry time. And I just sanded with a really light 400 grit sand before my last coat to make sure everything was super smooth. Now these tables that were most likely on their way to the dump if I hadn't grabbed them are simple, clean, classic, and most importantly, they're versatile enough to fit into a ton of different decor styles. Really just can't go wrong with simple, sophisticated white. Make sure that you are subscribed before you go, and I will catch you all next time.